Hi, I'm Joe Polizzi, and this is the Content Inc. podcast. 5 minutes every Monday for content creators who desire to be content entrepreneurs. Hello, content people. I've got another great Thursday interview for you. They just keep coming. This episode, which was recorded as part of the Content Inc. book tour on Clubhouse, is with comedian Michael Jr. In 2016 for Content Marketing World, which was our big event in Cleveland every year for content marketers, I was looking for a unique keynote. Someone funny, clean, and someone where the marketing attendees would learn and experience something not normal for a marketing conference. I happened to find a Michael Jr. video on YouTube and was immediately hooked. We reached out to Michael, and he was our second day morning keynote that year and was rated as one of the best keynotes we ever had, even better than Mark Hamill. In this interview, Michael goes into his focus on how you serve an audience. Really amazing stuff. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Here you go. I'm so excited. Michael Jr., I was talking to everybody before you showed up that I wanted you to present at Content Marketing World 2016. It was a little bit different choice. Most of the time we have marketing professionals, and you just you killed it on stage that night. It was fantastic. Most people don't know you. You know, you've been all over the pro circuit, Tonight Show especially. You've been a great comedy festival in Montreal, and you're all over everything. I think you've been on Oprah and Jimmy Kimmel and Comedy Central. You've done TEDx talks, and you speak at Fortune 500 companies. And what we're going to have you do, Michael, today is just break down not only your career and your take, which is amazing, especially from your podcast, but I do want you to talk about your podcast, talk about your YouTube series. You have a movie as well. And we've got a lot of content creators on the call today, and they're interested to see how you built that audience over time, and we'll give them something to take away with today. So, Michael Jr., first of all, welcome to the room. So many things we could start with, but what I'd love, and I've heard this many times, it's a great story, but can you sort of give us the 3-minute origin story about how you became a comedian, how you got into this space, and why you're doing what you do today?
Yeah, absolutely. Just as a side note, though, I wasn't on Oprah, like the person. It just sounded weird when you said that. I was on her show.
Hopefully everyone figured that out. I don't know.
Okay. All right, cool. I just want to make sure. I'm just breaking it up. So, the origin story. Well, I was conceived in Michigan. And before that, I was with my dad. Wait, you talking about my comedy? Okay, you're probably not talking about that.
No, I was thinking you were going to go there, so it worked out fine.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah. And then my mom was attractive, and then my dad was like, "Yo, what's up with you?" You're probably not talking about this. So, origin as far as how I started my company.
How you started your company, how you became a comedian, and how you came to be on this crazy interview today.
Yeah, so I look back at it. Ever since I was a kid, I just had this innate desire to help people or to just make them more comfortable. I did an interview yesterday. I had this conversation. When I was 6 years old, I remember my cousin would come over, and most kids would fight over toys, but I would actually take all my toys and line them up in a way where he could pick any toy he wanted to. It only had like 3 toys, but I would line him up and say, "Hey, what do you want to play with? Do you want to play any games?" And I was constantly trying to make sure he was comfortable. And then looking back, I've always done that. And it's almost like I have this question in my head that I'm always tried to answer, which was, how can I help people? So once I found out I had a sense of humor and this could make people feel good, I was like, wow, how do I do this even more? How do I do this on a larger scale? Because my desire, again, is to really just help people. Now, on the way to that, it kind of turned into let me get accepted by people. But after some personal development work, that's no longer the case. And now I'm all about helping people. So not just with the comedy. The comedy opens up a person's heart so they're willing to receive. But my desire is, if the heart is open, I like to make some sort of deposit that can make a significant change, whether that be me on stage or some content where I'm creating a video or doing my podcast, whatever that is. How can I make some positive change into the person that's listening? So that's what really kind of snowballed. And then doing the Tonight Show and doing all of these Comedy Central and the TED Talks and being on the Oprah show. And it's really just been a snowball effect from there. But it started with a dare back when I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and a friend dared me to get on stage. We were watching a movie, and in the middle of the screen, the movie went blank. And my friend, a German exchange student, said to me, "I dare you go tell a joke." And I went and told this joke, but the only joke I knew at the time was this dirty joke. And I don't even do and I had a friend there, and we made a deal a while ago that if either one of us cursed or used some dirty language, he could hit me in the chest hard as he wanted to, and vice versa. And this dude could hit hard, so I stopped cursing immediately. Well, he was at the movies that night, so I didn't want to go up there and tell a dirty joke and then somehow start MMA back in 1990. So I was like, So I had to rewrite this joke in my head as I walked down in front of this disgruntled audience members who just came to see a movie. But because the movie stopped in the middle of it, I went down there, I told this joke, all these people laughed. I felt a high for the first time ever. I don't do any drugs. I don't even drink. I had NyQuil once. That stuff is pretty crazy. I don't know if you've had it before, but I'd stay away from it if you can. Anyway, so I felt this high for the first time ever. And now looking back at that moment, it was really me getting a glimpse at what it is I'm called to do. I used to think I was just called to make people laugh, and that's the glimpse I was getting at. But what really happened in that moment is after I went and sat back down, security came in looking for me to kick me out the movie theater. Like they wanted to kick me out. Then this white lady who I don't even know stood up and said, "If you kick that young man out, I want my money back." And then some more people, bikers with long hair and tattoos and black people, the whole place stood up and came to my defense. So the glimpse that I really got about what it is I'm called to do isn't just to make people laugh, but it's to make them laugh and realize and come together for something that's bigger than just themselves. That's what happened in that moment. And that's what's happening in the moments of my life as I breathe right now.
Well, I love that take because, we talk about it in the book where you have to have a tilt, you have to have a differentiation area. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because in most of your podcast episodes and in your YouTube videos, you really talk about what makes your comedy different and you lead with that. Can you talk about that? Because I think I haven't heard another comedian do that. And I think that's why you've been able to stand out.
Yeah, my whole thing, man, is when in the audience, I just started sharing this recently, but imagine me on stage, or if you check out any of my YouTube videos, and when I'm on stage, there's something that's happening that I never talked about until maybe a month ago. But what's really taking place is I may be presenting joke number one, but at the same time, I'm doing the math on what I think joke number two should be based off how you're currently responding to joke number one. Then I will move on to joke number three, and I'd start doing the math on what I think that joke should be based off how you're currently responding to joke number one and probably will respond to joke number two. Then I would move on to joke number four. I actually used to go 7 jokes deep. So I would be thinking about joke number 7, have the all the jokes before that lined up, but I'm still presenting joke number one. And the question I would ask is, how can I get more laughs from this audience? But I'm telling you, and I hope your listeners grab a hold of this, there was a shift that took place, a significant shift where instead of asking, how can I get laughs from people, I started simply asking the question, how can I give my audience an opportunity to laugh, which changed everything. But since then, I've tweaked the question to what can I give to my audience? That question right there changed everything. Number one, I couldn't go 7 jokes deep anymore because I had to do more math while I'm presenting joke number one. And number two, the big change, the most significant change was it wasn't just jokes anymore. So all I was doing was listening between the gaps and asking, what does this audience need? Now, listen, everybody listening right now, in your life, as you create content or whatever you're doing, there's gaps. My question to you is, what question are you asking in between the gaps? Are you asking, what can I give? Or are you asking, what can I get? And if you don't know the answer to that question, I think you know the answer to that question. You're probably asking, what can I get? Because that's what we all do by default. So you have to make a decision to ask, what can I give? So I started doing that. I started asking, what can I give the audience? And most of the time it's funny, but sometimes it's something a little more. Like one example that's really kind of bananas is I spoke in my TED Talk about how comedy works, how there's a setup and there's a punchline. The setup is when a comedian makes the audience think in one direction, where the punchline is when he changes the direction in a way you're not expecting. When you catch on to that change, you receive the punchline, and the results are revelation, fulfillment, and joy. Well, I was in Nashville, and I explained that to my audience in the middle of some jokes. And then I explained to him how life works. In life, there's a setup and there's a punchline. Your setup is what you have received, but your punchline is about what you're called to deliver. And most people know their setup, but not everybody knows their punchline. Your setup is the fact that you're married, you got this career, you got this job, you got this audience, but what is your punchline? So I asked that question, and I moved on, and I'm on stage, and we're having fun, and I'm listening between the gaps, and I feel like I'm supposed to bring this lady from the front row on stage. There's 2,200 people there. I don't know any of these people, but I just have this sense that I need to bring her up on stage. But here's the problem. First of all, I work alone. Like I write my own jokes. Like I don't need, like, but I still have this sense of bringing this lady up on stage. So I was like, man. So then I look at her and I notice she's not even looking directly at me. She's looking at the sign language lady, which means she's deaf. I don't know any sign language. Why would I bring her up on stage? Only sign language I know is a thumbs up and another one, including involving my hand that I don't use anymore. Like, like I got nothing. So I do another joke and I feel it again. Bring her up on stage. Joe. So I bring this lady up. I asked the sign language lady. I said, hey, can you ask her to come up on stage, please? Listen, I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. The audience is like, what's going on? We were just laughing really hard moments ago. So she comes up on stage. It's a white lady. She's maybe like 54 years old. I can tell I have to be very, very careful with her because she's a little afraid too. So I said to the sign language lady, now I've never said this before and haven't said it since. I said to her, I said, can you ask her what is her biggest need? So she signs over, she signs back, and she says she doesn't have any needs. She says she's just fine. I was like, nah, ask her again. So she signs over again and she comes back. She says, well, her and her husband haven't been able to go on vacation in over 11 years, not even for a weekend. And they could really use some time away. I was like, okay. Now, what normally happens there? Normally, maybe we pass a hat, a bunch of people put some money in it. But we've all seen that before. The greatest punchlines are the ones you never see coming. So all I did was ask the next question. Please pay attention to that part. Ask the next question instead of assuming what the answer is. So I just simply said, well, why not? Why haven't she been on vacation over 11 years? She signs over, she signs back, and she says, well, her and her husband have a special needs child, and they can't afford a nurse who's qualified in a way where they feel comfortable and they can leave. I was like, okay. So I turned to my audience, right? I don't know who's in this audience. There's 2,200 people here sold out. We've been laughing really hard. I turned to my audience. They're silent at this point. And I said, where is the special needs nurse who can deliver their punchline? And the room is silent at first. Like they're still kind of tripping. We was just laughing. So I said it again. I said, where is the special needs nurse who can deliver their punchline? And Joe, you hear a voice come from the top balcony to my left, and the voice says, "Here I am." And this lady comes walking down, and the whole room is done. Like we're done. We introduce them, and they live 30 minutes from each other. Everybody is done. A year later, I had a woman approach me at an airport, and her first words to me was, "I was there." I'm like, "We was where? What? You gonna tell the police? I don't know what you're talking about, lady. Like, what are you talking about?" And she explains to me, I was there in Nashville when the deaf lady received the gift from me. And we both start tearing up. It was such a powerful moment. But the only reason the moment happened is because I was listening in between the gaps, asking a different question than what most people might ask by default, simply asking, what can I give to my audience?
Oh, I love that story. It's interesting because I was listening to your last podcast episode, which I think was about the comfort zone or getting out of the comfort zone, and you were talking about how maybe you just didn't talk about this, but that you realized that you're a teacher and you're looking at teaching in a different way because you've got these classes and you're doing all these things online and you're building a platform. Is that a choice now that you're making in your content in every, whether you do on stage stand up or whether you're doing in your other platforms? Are you now thinking of yourself, I'm not just a comedian, I am a teacher, and this is what differentiates me?
You know what's so cool about that? I had someone introduce me recently and it was so cool, and we have to coin the phrase, as a comedic thought leader, which is awesome because I do like leading in thoughts if I can. I mean, unless somebody thought about it first, then it won't work. I'm behind them. But yeah, comedic thought leader. Whenever I'm on stage, if you see me on any stage, I am looking for an opportunity, first of all, just to help people. And maybe sometimes helping them just means bring them laughter. But more times than not, it's really about making a bigger deposit that can make a more significant change in their life. Because a lot of people will come to a comedy event, for example. If I'm doing a comedy show as opposed to keynote speaking, a lot of people will come because they want to laugh. But wanting to laugh, that doesn't necessarily equal what it is they need. So they may need something else. So even on the podcast that we have called, what is it? Oh, it's the same title as my book, Funny How Life Works. We are just cracking up laughing, and then some nuggets just start showing up. I mean, some really, really awesome stuff. And then we always tie it up at the end with something really cool as well. So, teacher, I got way too much respect for teachers. I don't think I would call myself a teacher. But if somebody learns something from me, great. But teachers, I got a lot of respect for them. So I'm just like I would say comedic thought leader because you can choose to receive some of my thoughts, but I'm not going to grade you on it.
Do you have? I want to talk about your platform in a little bit that you built,
Hmm.
especially because you've done some different things during, the pandemic, as a lot of performers have. Do you have a specific idea of who your audience is? I know you're talking about, you're focusing on helping them. Do you have an idea of, okay, my audience is in this frame of mind or this type of person? Do you think about that as a comedian?
Yeah, I can't not. So not just as a comedian, just as a person, man. What I'm called to do is to comedically inspire people to walk in purpose. Like that's what I'm called to do. So if anyone isn't sure about what it is they're called to do, those are my people. Like I want you at my comedy events. I want you at my keynote. I want you to listen to the podcast, get the book. I am speaking to you. If you're not clear, if you don't clearly know what it is you're called to do, then I would love to talk to you or for you to consume some of my content.
Well, the good thing is you got a lot of people out there
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
available. I'm just going to do a quick room reset. Hey, everybody, thank you. We've got a lot of new people in the room. We're talking to comedian and maybe not teacher, but I'll call him a teacher, Michael Jr. We're kind of breaking down how he looks at audience, how he looks at his platform. Michael Jr., I want to talk a little bit about, okay, so you just went through a tough time. I have a brother who's a musician, went through a tough time during this particular moment because you couldn't be out in front of people and performing like you've done. I know you're going back on the road now. I want you to talk about maybe that experience a little bit for you and then what you've done and adapted differently. I think luckily, maybe you might want to break it down a little bit. You've had such a great platform. You've got a wonderful YouTube platform. You got a podcast, and I think that probably helped you out. But can you break that down a little bit over the last year?
Yeah. So uh, the pandemic was actually, man. Listen, so I was preparing like maybe a year beforehand. We created these things called digital comedy shows. This was a year before the pandemic. We came up with the idea. 6 months later, we had it done. And a digital comedy show is basically I will come on camera and do a personalized video to whatever your company is, whatever your organization is. And then we go to comedy clips from my unreleased comedy special. And then I come back and say some more stuff to the company, get into the details, talk about the CEO, whatever that is. So we'd already created these digital comedy things 6 months beforehand, and we were about to launch it. Then when the pandemic hit, suddenly everybody wants a digital comedy show. So it was like awesome, and people are still getting them even now. In fact, we shot four of them yesterday or something. So we're constantly shooting these all the time. So and I really want to multiply myself as best I can, as opposed to me having to be on stage or like that's just not the. I mean, you can't really scale that. I mean, I don't know how to. I know they were making extra lambs. They were cloning lambs for a little while or sheep, but I don't know if I want another Michael Jr. around. That's what we did. We decided to go ahead and these digital comedy shows have been doing amazing. Like people ask me, what is my favorite place to travel? My favorite place to travel is home. I love being home with my family. Like it is the best. So being creative like this allows me and coming up with more ways to serve the people. Like I've reached more people probably this year than I had before because of this situation, because of the pandemic. So I'm all about choose and move and what else can I do to increase the impact? Because people still need to understand their purpose. People still need clarity. Just because I can't be on stage doesn't mean I'm not called to deliver. So I would never, for all the listeners right now, please, by all means, look for opportunities to deliver regardless to your situation. Like whatever your gifting is, whatever your skill is, it should, ideally, it should not be, it shouldn't be able to be handicapped by geographical restrictions. If so, just be prepared to change.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that your biggest platform online for a while was YouTube. I could be wrong, but didn't you started on YouTube, then you diversified into the podcast, and you wrote your
Mhm.
best-selling book. I mean, can you take me through that journey? Maybe what your content creation looks like in a week, so people listening get an idea for all the things that you're doing right now.
Yeah, so what I'll do is on for YouTube, like right now, me and my daughter have this thing called Cocoa Thursdays that we do on Facebook. We didn't do it today because she wasn't feeling that well, but she's 11 years old, and we always get Cocoa together every Thursday, anyways. So then I turned on the camera one day, and it's just a blast. It's me and her sitting in the car drinking cocoa before school and just talking about life. Like I'm like she had a issue with she wasn't getting along with her teacher, and then we talked about that, and then she talked about how she felt and what was going on. It was really really cool. It was funny. It was engaging. But we would do this all the time, and then I just thought, man, I wonder if this could help some people. So with her permission, we started recording it, and people were really really eating it up. So I think in two ways. I think, okay, how can I take care of the people who are right in front of me? And then is there any way to use what I'm doing right now to help people who are not in front of me right now? So if I can capture that in some way, even though I'm a pretty private person, if I can capture that in some way and deliver it to the people, then that's what I'm gonna do. So what we'll do is we'll do a video like that, and then the following week we'll put that same video. You enjoy it, and YouTube has blown up for us significantly. But I have to be real with you, we put very very little effort in YouTube. Uh, like small. I mean, my effort was to go ahead and post some videos, and then people just started sharing the videos like crazy. YouTube probably, you're right, it probably is our biggest platform. We have more numbers on Facebook for sure, but as far as being able to reach the people, it's absolutely been YouTube. So to kind of combine your last question, one of the things we did that I felt like was really a necessary move is I filmed a comedy special called More Than Funny. And what we do in More Than, the reason I called it More Than Funny is because it wasn't that it was extra funny. It was really a play on words. It was more than funny. Like it was an additional things in there aside from funny. So in this comedy special that still hasn't been released yet, we do 30 minutes. I do 20 minutes of comedy, and then we jump into a story about a guy I met who goes into the woods and helps homeless people. So the next thing you see after me on stage doing jokes is me on an ATV going to help homeless people find housing who are living in the woods. And then I tell that story, then I jump back right to the stage and I'm doing more jokes. Then after that, we go to a family whose vehicle got stolen and they went through some hard times, and we end up buying them a van. And then we jump right back to the jokes. And then we end with another story just as powerful about this pizza delivery guy who was also an artist. And we've met a family who had a special needs son who passed away. And we had the artist draw a picture and we surprised the family with it. It was so powerful. But all I'm doing is I'm creating this content so I can take people on a ride where they can see, where they can laugh, they can learn, and they can cry. And so we created this whole comedy special, and I was ready to release it. We were talking to Netflix and different platforms, and when the pandemic hit, I felt in my heart I was supposed to just drop this thing for free on Facebook. So we let that thing loose on Facebook and YouTube for like 3 days, and it went berserk, and then we took it down just because people were so afraid, or they didn't understand what was going on with this pandemic. We were like, we need to give some comic relief, and that's what we did. So I'm more driven by my heart when it comes to releasing content as opposed to only strategy. There is strategy, and I have people on my team who are strategic with that. But when I see some people hurting and I know there's something I can do with it from a comedic or a thought leader perspective, then I'm just going to drop it. And more times than not, those are the videos that go berserk. In fact, one of them was the reason I got on, was with a video Oprah saw and was like, and she contacted us and said, hey, can we please use this video, which was If anyone looks it up, it's called The Delivery Room with Michael Jr. It's a powerful, powerful video, and there is not a funny thing in it. Nothing in the video is funny, but it's one of our more powerful videos.
No, it's a fantastic story. So we're gonna get to Q&A in a little bit. So if you have a question for Michael Jr., now would be the time. I'm gonna pass it over to Ann in a little bit. Um, Michael Jr., I think the one thing that I've noticed that you're doing versus maybe a lot of other performers is it's not just you. You're really focusing on this brand, Funny How Life Works. You've got the podcast, you've got the book. Where are you taking this thing? What's your vision for, you started with you, but you've got a lot of people working for you now. You've got a whole team. What's the big, if you had not an exit strategy, but what's your vision for what this thing becomes?
Well, yeah, that's exactly really, really what it is, man. We say I got a big team. It's actually me and my cat. I don't have a team at all. It's just I got a cat and he got 3 legs, so it's not that big. No, I'm just playing. No, I have an awesome team, man. They're amazing. They're really, really, really strong and good at what they do. So the plan with Funny How is exactly what you talked about. Like Michael Jr. is a brand, I guess. It's also a human, a person. But Funny How Life Works, that brand, we want to. It's literally what it says. It's us using funny to help people understand how life works. So we just wrote the book. It came out in April. Amazon, Target, everybody sold out of the books. We were like, wow, this is amazing. So now we're offering signed copies at funnyhowlifeworks.com, and that is working out really, really well. But the goal is to constantly use funny, because I see funny everywhere. And comedy opens up a person's heart, as I mentioned. So if the heart is open, I mean, people remember when they laugh. You remember up to 36% more information when comedy is involved with the information. So we're going to do a series of these. We actually just created a course. We have a journal that goes with the book. All of this stuff at funnyhowlifeworksbook.com. We have all of these items, and we're going to continue to make more and more items so people can consume it, because it's easier to consume. We got families watching our courses together, enjoying it. Like I'm talking about the kids, the mom, because they're all, the first thing they're doing is they're laughing together. They're watching some stand up, they're laughing, they're enjoying it, and then suddenly a lesson shows up, and they're like, oh, wow, yeah, what do you think, kids? Like, it's so awesome. So we're going to continue that on. Like, that's really the scalable version of Michael Jr. And it truly is funny how life works. See what just happened? Did you see that?
No, all right. We're going to open up for Q&A in a little bit, but Ann, I'm going to let you take the reins first. I think you have a first question.
I do. And if any others do, please raise your hand. Just tap the hand button down in the right. So, Michael Jr., talk to me when you talk about listening between the gaps, which is really intriguing, but it also seems like it's a big risk taking thing, right? Especially when you're live on stage from that. So, how do you listen between the gaps for yourself and then kind of teaching others, right? How do others listen between the gaps?
Yeah, so all you do, and everyone listening right now, probably yourself as well, there's been a time, maybe today, maybe yesterday, or sometime this week, where you feel like you're supposed to do something nice for somebody else. Right? There's just something, oh, I should tell her that that I like her hair, or I should mention to him. Like, I have a friend who has a great story. We're at the airport, and he feels like he's supposed to give the gate attendant $20, just like a tip, because she helped him out or whatever. He was like, man, it's weird. You don't tip those people. This is weird. I don't know. Why would I give her $20? I was like, dude, here's what happens. As soon as you feel like you're supposed to do something nice for somebody else, the next thing that happens is you start to rationalize your way out of it. No, this doesn't. Why would I do that? So my thought process is, there's a book called The 10-Second Rule, and it says in 10 seconds, you got to go ahead and do that thing that's nice for that other person, or you will talk yourself out of it. But for me, it's 1.4 seconds. Like, I can come up with 18 different ways why not to do it, especially with the deaf lady. I was like, why would I do that? So when you get that sense in your chest and your stomach and your heart of doing something nice, and then when you get that next thought of rationalizing why you shouldn't do it, use that thought as confirmation that you actually should. So my friend walks up to the lady. We walk up there, and he hands her this $20. And he's like, hey, I know this is probably weird, but I just feel like I should give you $20. So he gives her the $20, and she almost starts to tear up right there at work. And I'm listening. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And she said, well, when I got to work today, I was rushing out the door. I dropped my kids off at childcare, and I rushed in, and I didn't put any gas in my car, and I ran out of gas as I went into my parking spot for work, and I forgot my purse at home. She said, so all day I've been thinking, how am I going to get any money to put some gas in my car? Because my friend is listening between the gaps and not afraid, he decides, I'm just going to do this. It's weird. And he just did the thing. And wow, not only was she impacted and he was impacted and me, but now the people who hear this story, hopefully you're inspired too, because you are hearing things in between the gaps, but a lot of times what you're hearing is something negative. So comedians always get hecklers, right? We always get hecklers. Most of the time, a heckler is someone who's trying to take you off your game so you can't do what you're supposed to do. Well, in life, there's hecklers too. One of the biggest hecklers that people have is the heckler of themselves. That self-talk that is negative, that's talking down on you. Well, that's not the only voice that you're hearing. You're also hearing voices that are giving you ideas of maybe some great content to create, or maybe even how to help somebody. Distinguish between those voices and make the decision to help other people. You will be completely amazed at what takes place. I hope that answered your question.
Oh, and more from that. That's awesome. You never know the rest of somebody else's story, right? You don't know their story. You can only create your own from it. It's very interesting to come through. So, one other question around your content development. This takes it more into the tactical aspects, I think. You perform on stage, but then you also do the videos and the podcasting. So I'm curious, talk me through, when you have a live audience, you can feel more of a reaction. But whether you're doing it on YouTube or even sometimes with Clubhouse, right? You don't get that immediate reaction. You can't see it. So how does that affect your storytelling, your comedy, your work?
Yeah, it used to affect things a lot because I'm on stage. I get comedy, you get instant feedback. If you're a singer, you really don't know if you did good or not. Like people might tell you, oh, that was awesome. You were so good. But you don't really know if they're telling the truth. With comedy, an audience can't collectively fake laugh. It's just not going to happen. So that feedback is extremely, like it's super, super important, but it's not as important as it used to be. Here's what I mean. Earlier, I mentioned how I made a shift from wanting to help people with laugh to needing acceptance from people. Once I understood when I was doing comedy to get acceptance from people, and I shut that down. And then for me, I just was like it was because of me really understanding who God is in my life and who Jesus is. Once I got that clarity right there, all of that need for acceptance from people subsided significantly. And then that's what allowed me to start doing comedy. Like I have a nonprofit called Funny for the Forgotten, where we go to homeless shelters and prisons and abused children's facilities. And a lot of my comedians friends will say, man, how can you do comedy at a homeless shelter? What if they don't laugh? Here's the thing. I'm not there to get laughs. I'm there to give them an opportunity to laugh. When you make that shift to giving your gift, to giving your content, as opposed to trying to get something from your content or from your people, the pressure releases significantly. So when I'm doing a Zoom, we did a whole tour called Laugh Your Mask Off on Zoom, and everybody was on mute and I couldn't hear any laughs. But I worked the material. I knew it was strong. I felt good about it. And when I presented it to the people, I presented it as if they were falling out their chairs laughing. And some of the people, I could actually see that they were. But because I wasn't there for the acceptance, it made it so much easier to do. So a huge takeaway for everybody listening is ask yourself, as you're making this content, as you're putting these things out there, are you doing it so you can receive, or are you doing it truly to give? Because when you give, you're going to receive. But if you're focused on the latter, you won't be as successful. I'm telling you, like I'm telling you.
That makes perfect sense. It's just a matter of listening, right? To do it and having the confidence from it. So you were talking, and actually I have one more question, but if anyone else has questions, please tap the raise your hand button and we will bring you to the stage so you can ask it. So you talked about Cocoa Thursdays. I'm curious of how your kids view your profession. Are they looking to get into it? We were just talking the other day about a survey of kids wanting to be tubers was the top profession of what kids wanted to grow up to be. So I'm curious of what your kids think of it all.
Yeah, my kids really like what I do, mainly because they get to eat. I think that's the main reason they enjoy it so much. They like food and milk and stuff. So I think that's the main reason. No, my daughter has a great sense of humor. Ever since she was like 2 years old. When my daughter was 3 years old, I went and she would come get in the bed with me and my wife all the time. I'm like, you can't get. She sleeps wild. When we're in the bed together, all three of us, we made a capital H. That's what the shape was. So one night, she's like 3. I take her out of the bed and I pick her up and I lay her in her own bed. And I said, hey, you can't sleep in here with us. There's not enough room. And I lay down and then I get ready to walk off. And she says, Dad, can you lay with me for a little while? I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I lay down in the bed. 1 minute later, 3 years old, she gets up. And I'm like, where you going? She's like, there's room now. I said, what in the world? Like, the way she thinks is brilliant, but I don't put any pressure on my kids to do what I'm doing by any means, because this isn't the easiest thing to do. But they do have very strong sense of humor and great ways of thinking, and they're all unique in their own way. So I'm down with supporting them no matter what they want to do. Like my biggest desire with my kids is to love them no matter what. So I say to my kids on a regular basis, there's nothing you can do that's going to cause me not to love you. Like there's nothing you can do for that. I try to drill that into them as much as I possibly can. But that was a side note. I'm ready for the next question if you have one.
We do, and I'm going to be bringing him to the stage now. Richard, I think, is going to be soon appearing on the stage. For that, Richard, do you have a question? We'll take you off of mute.
Yes, I have a question and a comment. Thanks for bringing me up. Michael, really enjoy your comedy. My family and I rented Selfie Dad when it was first released, and not only to support you, but just to get some laughs, in the midst of the pandemic. So we really appreciate that. Appreciate your comedy. Appreciate that you have kept it clean, because even a lot of well, I won't say a lot of, but some comedians that are believers don't always keep it clean. Uh, in when they're in a different context. So I appreciate, uh, your maintaining that profile. For us, for our families, and I know mainly for yourself and your family, just being able to articulate that. I'm wondering, and this may be completely off the subject, but it's something that just came to mind. Do you deliberately steer clear of the political stuff that's going on in our circles? That's pretty prominent right now. I'm done speaking.
Wow, that was dope, Richard. I gotta try using that. I'm done speaking. Like, do you do that in person when you're talking to people?
No,
Like, hey,
that's a
mom.
clubhouse thing. That's a clubhouse thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. This is my
Yeah,
first
but I'll say
clubhouse when I
that.
was a
I'll say
kid.
it this way: I have spoken. How about that?
Oh, that's even worse. Especially with your deep voice, you sound like the Lord. So, okay.
Well,
All right. So to answer your question, steer away from political stuff. Here's the thing. I don't just steer away from political stuff necessarily on purpose. It just has such a short shelf life. Like I want the content that I release to be able to live for a while. And like I did a joke once where if anybody remembers, what is his name? Tim Conway. You can Google him real quick if you want to, but just to get a visual of what he looks like. So I'm doing this event with Tim Conway, and I know who he is. He's a comedy legend, amazing or whatever. And I did this, and I said this line to Tim Conway, where he's sitting on the couch next to me, and he said something a little negative towards me, but it wasn't super negative. And then I said to him, man, I'm just so excited to be here with you, man. It's just amazing to be here. I'm sorry Barack Obama beat you. And the place explodes in laughter. The one of the guys on the couch falls off his chair onto the ground laughing so hard. Now, most people right now listening to this is like, why was that funny? Because you don't know why it was funny. But Tim Conway looked like John McCain, who had just lost to Barack Obama. But right now, in 2021, all you guys are listening like, what? Sure, okay, I believe you. I got to research and find out. So the funny didn't even last. I'm more about what kind of content, not just funny, but what can I say that's going to have longevity, it's going to have a shelf life, because now that we're capturing everything at the beginning of this call, Joe said, hey, we're recording this. which means my great grandkids will probably hear this, and I want them to enjoy it as well, as opposed to me talking about how Abraham Lincoln wore some pants that was too short once. Like what? Huh? Yeah. So great question, Richard. Hey Joe, by the way, them cookies, dude. You sent me some cookies. I appreciate that, man. This sounds like a
It's
weird. It sounds
no,
like some weird slang right now. It's actually cookies that you eat. It wasn't something weird, people. I just
kind of
want to throw
yeah,
it out there.
kind of a weird 180 degree on that one, but yeah, absolutely. Hey, we deliver cookies and good content. That's all we have, That's what we do.
That is great, man. Who
But
made the cookies though? Like, did you
uh,
buy them or did you make them?
no, yeah, locally here in Cleveland, Ohio, we have a friend that does it, and if you want more, just let us know. We'll get them for you.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
absolutely. That's what we
That's
do.
great, man. Thanks, sir.
No, you got it. Ann, I know Ann's got one more question, and I'm going to go wrap it up. So, Ann and Richard, thank you for the question. That was
Yeah,
fantastic.
Richard. Good looking out, man. With the
Yeah.
big, deep voice, sound like the Lord. Oh yes, you are. I have spoken. Okay.
And I have to laugh that because of the Tim Conway story, Tim graduated from Bowling Green, which is where Joe graduated from. So many years before Joe
Oh,
graduated, but small
wow.
circles from that to come through.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So my next question is kind of a boring one, but it's an important one for business. Talk to a little bit about how you built your team. You were talking about you have a great team of what qualities you look for, or kind of what was your first hire or maybe second hire on that.
Yeah, I am. I'm miserable at building a team. I just gotta be real with you. Like, Bill. Oh my goodness. First of all, I am a visionary when it comes in the company. So I just last week hired a beast mode COO. This dude is beast. So I'm super excited about that. So all the people I've been through a lot of people. My very first hire a long time ago, and she quit, and I simultaneously fired her at the same time. It was my wife. Like at the same, it was like simultaneously. I'm like, and we're done with this. And then we went to bed. That part was great. Anyway, but I have an assistant who is super strong. My goodness, I don't even know how Diana does all of these things, and she's just super beast. And then I have a person that manages the business aspect. I have a really strong sales guy and development, a business development guy, and then I have the COO, and then we have a bunch of people that we outsource to. I say outsource, but they're not geographically close to us. But the most important part, because I'm really strong at writing jokes. Like I can write jokes, I can write content, I can write stories, I can write movies, I can write documentaries, I can do all of that. I can present very well. I am miserable at keeping a calendar. I was looking for houseclub.com before this interview. I was like, where am I going? I don't even know what this clubhouse. Had a clubhouse when I was 11. What is this? So in fact, I've been looking at the camera this whole time. Turns out y'all can't even see me. I'm just playing. That was funny to me. I don't know if anybody. Anyway, so yeah, but my team is so important. I mean, there is no, and I've been through. I had a lot of people work for me. I've had like I don't know if I have anybody on my team right. I've hired some PhDs to get this stuff done, and I found that I just have to hire for my weaknesses, and I got a bunch of them. That's probably why I got so many people working for me. So it's just very important that I think anybody needs to be aware of their weaknesses. And I administratively, oh my goodness, yeah, it's just not happening. Like for real, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I can't do it. So my main thing was to get a strong assistant first, and now that I have the COO, things are about to change. I mean, things are about to get greater significantly fast. I'm excited about it in a big way.
No, Diana is fantastic. So she's been a great help in making sure that you found the right place to go. But I'm totally with you. We have people on our team that will not let me touch my calendar because whenever I do, bad things happen. So I'm not. I got this. I got the same thing
Exactly.
you have. I'm not even allowed. I can view only on my calendar. That's all I have.
That is hilarious. Hey Joe, wait. What inspired the book though, man? Let me ask you that. Like, I mean, obviously you know this stuff, but what made you say, "Hey, man, I'm gonna do this book now. It's time to do it." Like, what was
Well,
that?
I'll answer. This is about you, but I will answer this one. I wrote the first book, Content Inc., first version in 2015, because we built this idea of how do you build an audience first, and then once you build a loyal audience that knows, likes, and trusts you, then you can go ahead and monetize that audience. And that was just a book that I wrote. It did great. It was fantastic, but in 2020 beginning, things were starting to happen. They were strange, and I stopped writing. I was writing mysteries and thrillers at that time, and I was getting all kinds of people were pinging me, and they were like, "Joe, how do I build a business online? Joe, I just got let go of my job. Joe, my having trouble making it today. What is your model still work?" And so I said, maybe I can do more good by updating this book. And of course, we did your interview. We did a bunch of other interviews. We looked at about 200 companies that basically said they built a content first business model. They went out, built a loyal audience. They consistently delivered valuable, indispensable information over time. And then we basically found the roadmap, and it's called the Content Inc. model. You followed it, and another couple hundred companies followed it. And I just thought that was a better use of my time when people are struggling than just writing another thriller, which
Man,
maybe I'll do someday.
you could have did both, man. Listen, like once there was a company that was very, very scary. Like you could have just blended them both. You could have made a thriller,
You should,
a thriller content book. Like,
yeah, you should read. You should actually read my novel. It's called The Will to Die, and it's about how it starts. So
wow,
yeah,
that's
it's pretty. Yeah,
hilarious.
you'll get a kick out of it. Okay, so enough about me. I want to ask you one or two more questions, and then we're gonna wrap this thing up before the top of the hour. So I consider you, Michael Jr. You're a content entrepreneur. You're somebody that you've got some wonderful information to share. You've done that. You've built a loyal audience. You now monetize many different ways. There's people listening to this right now that want to do the same thing as you, no matter if it's in logistics or retail or whatever the industry is. They have a gift. They want to share that gift. What would be your advice to them as they're getting started and trying to do what you've done?
I would say sometimes I do a keynote at like a college or something. I think I would say the same thing I say there is do not do something because you like to do it. Oh my gosh, please don't do that. I know everybody said that. Well, like right before somebody goes to college, they're like, "Hey, what do you like to do? What do you want to do?" No, the question to ask. I'm telling you, this is a game. The question to ask is, who do I want to serve? If you ask, who do I want to serve, and you find out who that is, first of all, the fact that you want to serve them, you're going to love it. It will put your alarm clock out of business day after day, year after year. But if you just do something because you like to do it, chances are that's going to wear off really, really soon. So, and if you're in a position right now where you're already doing something, but you're just doing it because you like it, find out who the people are at the end of what you're doing. What I mean is, there's not a job that exists, there's not a position that exists that doesn't somehow serve people. So find out who those people are. And if you know those are the people you're really called to serve, that you really want to serve, focus on the people, not the process. Like don't like you're not a banker. You help people who don't know how to manage money. Like you're not a mechanic. You help people reach their desired destination. Like focus on the humans, the people, and everything else will become so much easier. And it may be just as hard, but it's going to feel easier because you're looking at the people. Have you ever? It's almost like being in traffic and there's no and it's super thick and nobody will let you in. Like you're trying to merge, but nobody will let you in. Every single time, I guarantee. I don't know who you are, where you're from. Soon as you make eye contact with one of those cars, they let you in because you made eye contact. You're not just a thing anymore. You're not just a car. You're not a vehicle. You're a person. You also let those people in when you make eye contact with them. 100% of the time, nobody stares at you and not let you in. Like it doesn't happen that way. So in your business, are you making eye contact with the people you're actually helping, or are you only looking at the process? That's what you have to do. You have to assess that first, and everything else just comes so much more greater and so much more smoother, and it's so much more impactful and fulfilling.
Well, I love that whole take. That could be the show because that's what so many businesses miss. They're always about what do I want to sell? What's my story and how can I get that story out so that I can generate some kind of revenue or have people like me or whatever, instead of focusing on the needs of the audience and say how can I help them live a better job or get a better life. Everybody that creates content, that's almost the first place they fall down because the content is about, oh, I need to have this out of it, instead of if you just solve their desires and their pain points, they'll buy whatever down the road. buy anything you have to offer. It's just people have a tough time doing that because they think that, oh, we got to sell this thing right away. But this is
Yeah.
it's a long game. It's just a lot of people don't realize it. All right, I got one more question for you, and then we're done with this thing. You built an amazing platform, Michael Jr. What's the next thing? What are you looking at? Are you just going to keep doing what you're doing on the podcast and YouTube and everything else? Or are you? I know you're going out on the road, so you've got that. But are you thinking differently about the business model these days?
Yeah. So funny how life works is actually significantly. It's a really, really big project. I can't talk about it all right now, but pretty soon you're going to see this project in a really, really significant way. And we're also doing some really cool stuff with my nonprofit, Funding for the Forgotten. We're going to start capturing some video of us going to homeless shelters and prisons and abused children's facility and taking, really making laughter commonplace in uncommon places. Because the thing I love to do most is I really enjoy helping people. What's greater than that is to help people help people. So by capturing some of the footage of us going to these shelters and abused children's facilities, we'll use that to inspire more people to find out what it is they're called to do. So my thing is really, like I said, helping people help people. It is the best. So that's what we're pressing out to do. That's what we're going to do. In fact, I'll be doing that as soon as I'm done with this interview in some capacity. So that's like my main. That's a big focus. So everything else is just a product to get to that end to help somebody help somebody.
That's fantastic. Well, my best to you and your family. Before I close this out, Michael Jr., where is the best place that people can find more information about you?
So you guys can go to, if you go to funnyhowlifeworksbook.com, all of the information is there. We're actually, for a limited time, signing books. I'm actually signing books, and people can get a signed copy of Funny How Life Works, which came out in April. So go to funnyhowlifeworksbook.com. And then apparently I'm on Clubhouse too, I think. I just found that out.
May not be on again.
Yeah.
this may be it. This may be a one-time thing.
Yeah,
By the way, your podcast is fantastic. So I want to recommend.
Oh, thank you. That's big too. Yes, please check out the podcast. It's called Funny How Life Works. We just laugh, have fun, and help and use laughter to help people find out how life works, man. So it's pretty cool.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and everyone listening. If you want to hear more about Michael Jr.'s story and other content entrepreneurs just like him, go to content-inc.com. The book comes out next week. Michael Jr.'s got a special place in that book. And then to thank you for your time, Michael Jr., we are going to be sending you $100 in Tiltcoin. Tiltcoin is our creator coin that supports our content creation efforts. So you'll be receiving that once I get your information from you. Oh, you got it. Absolutely. So basically, when people buy Tiltcoin, that's how we support and can generate more content to help content entrepreneurs out there, people that want to be content entrepreneurs. So
I love it.
If you want to get more, you got it. If you want to hear more about what we're doing at the Tilt, go to thetilt.com. We have the next interview on May 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with the team of Teach Better and how they built one of the leading educational sites on the web. So thank you, everyone, for your time. I'm going to leave the room open for a little bit. But again, Michael Jr., thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you soon.
You guys are awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate you, Joe.
Thank you. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Okay, back to Joe now. I hope you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes look at Michael Jr.'s business and his content mission. Join us next Thursday on the Content Inc. podcast for another very special interview and case study from the Content Inc. book. Good luck, and go out and change the world for the better.